This is Danish Info News TV, your Danish-English news updates and business news from December 17th through 23rd. Greetings and welcome to Danish Info News TV. On today's headlines, the government reopens 5,000 disability pension cases. Courts handle shocking crimes, including child rape and domestic violence. Authorities will revisit 67 cannabis cases and ban marriages between close relatives. Christmas burglaries are on the rise, and a newly elected politician faces accusations of owing a disabled man over 100,000 Danish kroner. Police investigate sexual abuse of horses, while Radio 4 faces backlash over jokes about an amputee. Citizens are warned about fake reimbursement emails. The first of our main story is from Wednesday, December 17th. Government reopens 5,000 disability pension cases. Around 5,000 disability pension recipients will have their cases reopened to assess whether they were granted disability pensions lawfully. The cases concern immigrants from non-Western countries who live in socially disadvantaged public housing area. The government reaches this agreement on Wednesday with the Danish People's Party, Liberal Alliance, and the Conservative People's Party. We begin with our second of our main story from Wednesday, December 17th. 63-year-old sentenced for raping several children. A 63-year-old man residing in Hellesley municipality has been sentenced by the Kolding District Court to 5 years in prison in a case involving the rape of children. This was reported by the Southeast Jutland Police on X, and the case has also been covered by TV2 Syd. The man was convicted, among other things, of rape through sexual acts other than intercourse with children under the age of 12. He was also convicted of attempted intercourse with a child under 12 and of indecent exposure. The victims were 6, 8, and 10 years old at the time of the offenses. In another main story from Wednesday, December 17, 39-year-old man sentenced for violence against his wife and children. A 39-year-old man was sentenced to 1 year in prison for long-term physical abuse of his wife and 4 children, including slaps, beatings, choking, and use of objects. Evidence include videos and testimonies documenting repeated violence and force feeding. Charges of psychological abuse, repeated rape, and witness intimidation were dismissed due to insufficient evidence. The verdict was delivered by Glostrup District Court on December 16, 2025, and the man is considering an appeal. To a main story from Thursday, December 18, 67 cannabis cases to be reopened. Following a court ruling that THC levels inflated by forensic heating cannot justify punishment, police reviewed past cannabis cases. The ruling clarified that only pure THC exceeding 0.2%, not THC converted from THCA during analysis, can support conviction. After new guidelines were issued in March of 2023, police reassessed concluded cases and identified 67 cannabis cases to be reopened, with a few still under review. Authorities have kept relevant institutions informed throughout the process. In another main story from Thursday, December 18, government ready to ban marriage between close relatives. The government will ban marriages within the close family, for example, between cousins or between an aunt or uncle and a nephew or niece. This was announced by the Ministry of Immigration and Integration in a press release. The aim is to prevent forced marriages and negative social control. More on this story on our upcoming special edition. To a main story from Friday, December 19, increase in Christmas burglaries. Residential burglaries have risen in 2025, with almost 15,000 cases reported nationwide, over 1,000 more than in 2024. December remains the peak period, partly because many homes are left empty during the Christmas holidays. Despite this increase, burglary levels are still lower than before the COVID-19 pandemic and have been relatively stable in recent years. Police note that some criminals have shifted toward financial online fraud, while improved home security has helped limit burglaries. Regionally, Funen has seen the largest rise. Authorities stress prevention through neighborhood watch programs and caution against social media posts that signal an unoccupied home. In another main story from Friday, December 19, newly elected politician accused of owing more than 104,000 Danish kroner to a disabled man. Thomas Rasmussen, a newly elected municipal council member of the Danish People's Party in Nord-Djurs municipality, is accused by a disabled man of having defrauded him and of owing more than 100,000 Danish kroner, specifically 104,981 Danish kroner. This is reported by TV2 Østjylland. In 2023, Thomas Rasmussen was sentenced to 6 months in prison for fraud in the case and was also ordered to repay the money. However, according to the disabled man and his neighbor, this has not been done and the debt has now become time-barred. To a main story from Saturday, December 20th, in one of its kind, police investigate case of sexual abuse of horses in Værløse. Horse owners in Værløse are shocked and distressed after 2 serious incidents of sexual abuse of horses in the same stable in December. The first incident occurred on December 9 when horse owner Louise Larsen discovered that her Shetland pony had its hind legs tied together and showed clear signs of abuse. She freed the pony and immediately contacted the police and a veterinarian. Less than a week later, on December 15th, another horse in the stable was subjected to a similar assault. The horse belongs to Jennifer Garnett, who says the incident have had severe psychological consequences for both horse owners and animals. Feelings of insecurity affected daily life at the stable, even for owners whose horses were not directly harmed. Both cases have now been reported to the police and are being investigated by North Zealand police as possible violations of the Animal Welfare Act. Police describe the case as serious and state that a thorough investigation is underway while the perpetrator remains at large. As a result, horse owners have implemented extensive security measures including full video surveillance and locked stables, and urge other horse owners to be extra vigilant. To a different main story from Saturday, December 20th. Denmark to accept 200 quota refugees from Rwanda, Eritrea and Afghanistan. Denmark will accept 200 quota refugees in 2025, continuing the same level as in recent years due to historically low asylum numbers. As before, priority will be given to women and children. The refugees will come from camps in Rwanda, as well as Eritrea and Afghan refugees who have fled to neighboring countries. The government emphasized maintaining a strict immigration policy, noting that asylum numbers are significantly lower than in earlier periods. Denmark has accepted 200 quota refugees annually since 2020, and the 2025 intake follows the same model as in 2023 and 2024. Lastly, from Saturday, December 20th, Diabetes Association deeply shaken by jokes about amputee on Radio 4. The Radio 4 program, David Taylor, has faced strong criticism after host joked about Meghan Markle's father, who has had a leg amputated. The Danish Diabetes Association and several individuals say the humor is offensive and stigmatizing, arguing that amputations and diabetes are serious conditions that should not be mocked. Radio 4's editor-in-chief rejects the criticism, stating that jokes targeted the public father-daughter relationship rather than disability. Critics disagree, warning that such humor normalizes harmful attitudes. The debate highlights broader concerns, as around 600 related diabetes amputations occur annually in Denmark, and 18,000 people were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2025. This prompted the culture minister to order an investigation into Radio 4's use of public funds. To main story from Tuesday, December 23rd, fake emails about reimbursement payments circulating again. The Danish Medicines Agency has become aware that fake emails are currently circulating that misuses the agency's name to trick citizens into providing personal information. The agency warned of phishing emails with subjects such as "your open case" or "processing your case," which claims to concern reimbursement for medicine but are fraudulent. Citizens are urged not to click links, not to share personal information, and to delete the email immediately. Subsidies for medicine are calculated automatically at pharmacies. Anyone who has provided bank details should contact their bank immediately. The agency can be contacted if there is any doubt. To a main story from Tuesday, December 23rd, in a tragic case of child homicide. A 32-year-old man pleaded guilty Monday, December 22nd, in court to throwing a 2-year-old boy from a 7th-floor balcony with intent to kill. According to DR, the man had previously been convicted of killing a close family member and was at the time given a placement order due to severe mental illness. He also had a close family relationship with the 2-year-old child. The Capital Region states that it cannot comment further while the case is under police investigation, but emphasized that if one of its patients is involved in a tragic incident, the case will always be thoroughly reviewed to determine whether there are lessons to be learned. Now to some other news. We begin on Wednesday, December 17th. In a murder case, a 26-year-old man extradited from Turkey denies killing a 35-year-old man who was shot in his car in May. A 12-year-old girl witnessed the shooting and survived. The hearing is held behind closed doors. To a different case of weapons conviction, a 43-year-old Swedish man was sentenced to 2 years and 3 months in prison and expelled from Denmark for 6 years after being caught with a gun. School fraud. A former private school principal receives a suspended 60-day sentence for misusing the school's payment card, defrauding nearly 37,000 Danish krone. Biker assault case. Prosecutors are seeking to bring a case involving 16 bikers who assaulted a Christiana stall worker before the Supreme Court after reduced sentence in the High Court. Elderly fraud victim. A woman in her 80s lost valuables worth 150 Danish krone after being tricked by a teen fake bank courier. Repeat rapist. A 42-year-old man was sentenced to preventative detention for rape and witness intimidation, his 5th rape conviction. He appealed immediately. Holiday home burglaries. A 38-year-old Polish man was sentenced to 5 months in prison for fencing and multiple break-ins in summer houses. Illegal fireworks. About 3,000 illegal fireworks were found in a property in West Zealand. A 45-year-old man was arrested. More fireworks seized. Police seized nearly 1 ton of illegal fireworks in Athens municipality. 2 men were charged. Drunk driving. A 58-year-old bus driver received suspended sentence, community service, and a fine after driving with a blood alcohol level of 2.51. Train accident report. Investigators recommend stronger safety measures after a fatal incident where a passenger was trapped in a train door. Workplace safety. 50 to 70 workers faced dangerous conditions at Zara construction site in Copenhagen. Inspectors issued 44 immediate orders. In education, CBS closed admissions to 3 master's programs as part of the degree reform. Teachers training saved. The government will financially support keeping the teacher education program on Frederiksberg open after protests. Still in education, student exchange. The UK will rejoin Erasmus Plus from 2027, easing exchange for Danish and British students. Right to repair. Apple commits to making iPhone repairs easier in Denmark after competition concerns. Tax error. Around 1 million homeowners were affected by an error in their 2026 preliminary tax assessment. Corrected versions will be issued. School absence. Over 20% of primary school pupils had more than 10% absence in the last school year. In health, malaria vaccine. A Danish-developed vaccine reduced malaria risk by up to 76% in a clinical trial. In space mission, ESA approved the Danish-led Mani mission to map the moon's surface. In cybersecurity, a new Nordic-Baltic cyber consortium will be headquartered in Denmark. Now to news from Thursday, December 18. Child abuse case. A 36-year-old pedagogue was sentenced to 5 years in prison for sexual abuse of 3 minor boys and possession of extensive child abuse material. He was banned from working with children and given housing and contract restrictions. Sexual harassment in the military. A new survey shows more than 1 in 5 women in the Danish armed forces experienced sexual harassment in the past year. Among female conscripts, nearly half reported such incidents. Rape and unlawful detention. A 51-year-old man from North Macedonia received 4.5 years in prison and a 9-year expulsion for rape, threats, violence and unlawful detention of a woman he met online. He appealed. Psychological violence. A 37-year-old man was sentenced to 6 months in prison for prolonged psychological abuse of a woman in Copenhagen. In a different case, child abuse material. A 21-year-old man was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison for possessing child abuse material and for assaulting a prison guard. In fatal traffic accident, a 52-year-old woman died in a head-on collision south of Hillerslev. Another woman was injured. Rape in disability transport. A 42-year-old handicapped driver was sentenced to 3 years in prison and expelled for raping a woman with disabilities. He was banned indefinitely from commercial passenger transport. Extradition case. A 42-year-old Afghan man suspected by German authorities of espionage and plotting attacks on Jewish targets is to be extradited to Germany. He denies the charges. Fraud charges. A 55-year-old Russian-speaking woman was remanded in custody for allegedly scamming citizens out of payment details via fraudulent messages. Residence bans. 4 people have been given residence bans in the Ellemarken housing area in Køge. 1 has already violated the ban and faces a fine. Mail theft. A 31-year-old man was remanded in custody after stealing a PostNord delivery van filled with parcels. Money laundering. A 21-year-old man from Odense was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in prison for laundering more than 120 million Danish kroner. In education, University College Absalon will phase out its nutrition and health education program, with no new students admitted from 2026. Online dating. Nearly 8% of Danes aged 55 to 64 have used online dating in the past 3 months, more than double the share in 2023. News from Friday, December 19. Child sexual abuse. A 36-year-old man was sentenced to 7 years in prison for sexually abusing his biological daughter over a 4-year period. He accepted the verdict. Assault. A 64-year-old man was lured into an ambush and assaulted by masked attackers in Himmerland, North Jutland. The attackers fled when a witness intervened. Esbjerg stabbing. A 23-year-old man was rearrested in connection with a stabbing in Esbjerg after new developments in the case. Shoplifting and immigration. A 42-year-old woman from Colombia was held for 3 days after stealing shampoo in Aarhus. She lacked valid residency and faces possible deportation. In public transport, Copenhagen's M4 metro line will be extended with 2 new Nordhavn stations, Levent Kai and Nordsjø Plads, scheduled to open in 2030. Rail transport. King Frederick inaugurated Denmark's first battery-powered passenger train, marking its official opening in Lemvig. Now to news from Saturday, December 20th. Food safety. Salmon producer Polar Salmon Yachting Laks was reported to police for the 3rd time in 2025 over serious food control violations. Children's policy. The Children's Council has withdrawn a campaign about violent teachers following criticism from the Education Minister and the Teachers Union. Data breach. Ringkøbing municipality accidentally exposes 32,000 citizens' CPR numbers on its website for nearly 2 years. Workplace gifts. A new survey shows 96% of private sector employees receive a Christmas gift from their employer. Now to news from Sunday, December 21st. ATM explosions. 3 cash machines were blown up in Brande overnight. Police suspect 2 youth and believe illegal fireworks were used. Fireworks warning. Funen police urge parents to take responsibility for their children after reports of illegal fireworks used ahead of New Year's Eve. Now to news from Monday, December 22nd. Restraining order violation. A 29-year-old man received a 60 days immediate prison sentence for repeatedly violating a restraining order against a woman and her family. Illegal fireworks. A 45-year-old man in Bredebro was charged after police found illegal fireworks, including cannons and imported German fireworks, in his home. Nicotine advertising. The nicotine industry was fined 500,000 Danish kroner for illegal advertising a nicotine products. Insurance claims. Most insurance claims in 2025 concerned car-related damages led by roadside assistance and traffic accidents. Holiday healthcare. Emergency services in the capital region expect around 53,000 calls over Christmas, often linked to overeating and digestive issues. Christmas aid. Danish People's Aid will provide Christmas assistance to more than 33,000 children from financially vulnerable families. News from Tuesday, December 23rd. We begin in politics. The EU backs Denmark. EU leaders express full support for Denmark and Greenland after US appointed a special envoy to Greenland. Norway also voiced strong backing. US arms sale. The US approved a potential sale of military equipment to Denmark worth up to $951 million, including advanced long-range air-to-air missiles. Nurse pay error. 39 nurses in North Jutland were notified of pay reductions after a payroll mistake dating back to 2021 led to overpayments. Police manhunt. Police released the name and photo of a 37-year-old man wanted in connection with a rape and unlawful detention case in Zealand. Burglary sentences. 3 men were sentenced to prison terms of 9 months to 1 year and 3 months for a series of burglaries in East Jutland. Contraband phones. Danish prison seized 620 illegal mobile phones this year, nearly 2 per day, mostly in western Denmark. Armed robbery charge. A 40-year-old man was charged with robbery after threatening a security guard with an axe and knife during a burglary in Aarhus. Fireworks theft attempt. Police urge fireworks retailers to improve security after a failed theft attempt in Colombo. Christmas aid. Royal Cause is providing Christmas assistance to a record of over 23,600 families, while Dansk Folkehjælp is helping more than 33,000 children. Food waste volunteers. Over 3,000 volunteers are distributing surplus food at 41 locations across Denmark. Now to some Danish business news from December 17th through 23rd. We begin in economic and market trends. Employment rose for the 22nd month in a row in October, reaching of over 3 million wage earners. Denmark imported goods from China worth 119 billion Danish kroner in 2024, up by 71% when measured by origin. November housing sales dipped slightly to 7,700 homes, 15% below October, but remain high historically. The Danish stock market had its worst year since 2008, falling over 20%. Food prices are 30% higher than in 2022, despite global commodity prices falling. Now to some corporate news. Novo Nordisk stock surged 60% after US approval of Wegovy pill, also seeking US approval for new obesity drug Cargosima. Jysk Laslassen Group reported record revenue of 53.1 billion Danish kroner, up by 10% year-on-year. Ørsted investors' stocks fall after the US paused 5 offshore wind leases. Ørsted will comply and consider legal options. Planet Newsa internal loyalty list of employees raises labor environment concerns. Hotel Abelo Kro declared bankruptcy following forced dissolution. Let's look at international trade. Maersk resumed container ship transit through Bab el-Mandeb Strait after nearly 2 years due to security concerns. Gold prices reached a record of $4,383.76 per ounce, amid expectations of US rate cuts. Consumer and retail trends. Christmas shopping is peaking. Approximately 18% of Danes are shopping the last weekend before Christmas. Many retailers expect to lower prices in coming months. That's all for now. Stay on top of Denmark's breaking news with Danish Info News TV. Subscribe now and hit the bell. Don't miss a single story. Merry Christmas!